Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to you. April 25th, a little bit ahead of the market open. We'll talk a little bit about GameStop. Let's go back and review that SOFI trade. I posted Monday morning ahead of the market open talking about the $13 calls for SOFI. They expire May 16th. We saw about 4 million total premiums show up. What I wanted to see that came in on last Friday, what we wanted to see is that kind of appear a new open interest. And it did. Interest had increased then on Monday. And I talked about $12 calls also for this week had saw interest last Friday. So I talked about this Monday, kind of get you geared up ahead of the market open. Posted that an hour and a half ahead of the open. And it was actually quite incredible because it continued to rally into the day. So we posted about the trade idea. The flow came in on the 17th. We posted the trade idea then Monday morning, right as the stock sitting on the 9-day EMA. Well, the stock makes a nice move. I think a lot of people read the note, saw the flow. Other people reporting about it. There's a lot of bullish sentiment there and bullish flow within the stock. It moved up on Tuesday, and then you started to test some of those other ones like your 21 EMA, and then the 200-day was just right out of sight here, just really close, within reach. And a lot of people from a technical setup were kind of thinking a little bit of, dip down below here in early April, some consolidation leading up toward the 200, and would that be a push, to get above the 200, which we saw Wednesday and then Thursday, both Wednesday high 1235 and then yesterday 1236, so just a tick higher with the 50-day just sitting at 1256. So really good thesis, really good idea on those $13 calls. They certainly did move. I know I shared a few posts about those, and they had moved up quickly within a few days, and it seemed to be each day they had gone up. So I know that overnight it was about a 50% move. But like I said, those went closer to the money as SoFi had moved back up through the week. So it was a nice idea. I know there was a lot of people that caught it. I've seen the posts. A few people sent DMs like, "Hey, that was a good look on the flow," and that was kind of a joint effort. Other people had saw the flow, and we kind of looked at it, and we're like, "Well, let's see if the open interest carried over into Monday," which it did, and the sentiment was there, the flow was there. So let's see here and I had posted to the X subscribers about the $13 calls for May 2nd. Some people necessarily didn't want to stretch it all the way out a month because a lot of people were anticipating maybe some upside from a technical standpoint into the earnings play with volatility. So I know the $12 calls, or pardon me, the $13 calls for May 2nd, I was filling this week at 17. And then on Wednesday, they hit a high, I believe, of like 55. So not bad. They closed at 52 yesterday, so 17 to 52. And then the $13 calls that actually got alerted from that flow last Friday that I was like, hey, you guys might want to take a look at this. Those are filling around 38 last week at the time of alert. Then I think they hit like 72 or 75 this week. They closed at 74 yesterday. It hit a high of 76. So from 30, yeah, they pretty much doubled. So a little bit over double. But a nice move there. Definitely a nice move on the SoFi. For those that traded it, congrats. But we'll jump over here. Let me pull up switch gears a little bit. We'll jump over and look at GameStop. So you saw kind of the bulls defending that $27 level. The stock goes a little below 27. The bulls stepped right in. It's something I talked about during all the videos is, to watch your daily moving averages. I keep the 9-day and the 21 EMA up there and the 50 and 200 SMA, just some longer ones, and usually use the daily and the weekly time frame just to stretch things out a little bit. And we had talked about GameStop, moving back up, kind of closing the gap that it had created from the gap up in earnings. And if you look at the stock where it's been, yesterday low 2684. Well, yesterday's 9-day EMA was 2660. So just above a 9-day moving average. So I don't think anything lost at that point. Stock is where it was at back in February. Kind of nice to see that strength after earnings up, down, and then move back up. And it was on lower volume yesterday compared to previous days this week. So you had a nice on Monday, where the stock went down to 25.79. That level was defended. They jumped in, and if you note that day, The 9-day EMA was 25.96, top left corner. So boom, it caught some support there. I always look at these as a place where if the stock was going to retrace, I would look to these lower timelines, time frames here, just because the stock has been here before. You know where the stock has been. I feel like stocks have memory. They know where they've been. They know where they want to go based on sentiment, buying, option flow, news, earnings, etc., headlines. Very, we've seen the market the last few weeks. Very, very sensitive to headlines. Definitely putting those algorithm-controlled trading computers to the test. So, yeah, I mean, is anything lost with GameStop? No. Did it cool off a little bit? Is it consolidating in this gap up from where earnings was? Yes. Has it been here before? Absolutely. I mean, where was it a year ago? Exactly. So I mean, it's all they got some cash. So I know with the flow, some people were getting burnt on weekly call options. It happens. I get it. I get it. You get excited. You're like, oh, it's up. It could go up more. Then it goes down. You're like, ah, oh, why didn't I sell? I get it. It happens. So you always got to be very careful with these short dated weekly call options. We talk about it a lot. I won't beat yourself up or myself about it. What can you do? Well, what you can do is just manage that risk a little better. You see those gains, especially on short data. It's probably best to take them because sometimes they don't come back. That old, it's easier to see the trade once it's closed in hindsight, what it did afterward, but it doesn't really matter once you've left. So we look yesterday, there was some flow into the morning as GameStop, moved up, saw 27.50, a little bit of flow as it moved up, like net call premium to 500,000, and then just kind of faded into the day. Could be repositioning, traders closing out with this week being an expiry today. So there was some closing out of those calls. Put premium did remain flat, but the net call premium did, drop down there. So yesterday was pretty light though. I mean, light on common share volume, light on the total premium, 15 mil. So some of your biggest impact, we'll look at that to the chain. We got the 29 calls for July. Looks like some selling. We'll look at all of these here as well. Let's take a look at those, see what we can transpire or see what took place there. Just a little bit coming off the table there. We've seen that the last couple of days with these 29s for July coming off the table. And we can see a decrease in open interest, about 400,000 yesterday. So a little bit of money coming off the table in that regard. Let's take a look at these 37 calls for January. Looked like a little bit of volume in the OI increased. Now some volume yesterday, but the open interest decreased. So again, could be some traders shaving off some cash here from these positions that were already existing. Let's take a look though. If we take it out, could be some buying, selling. It's not been much activity, in regards to volume and changes in open interest until just recently. Bought here, then looks like sold. I don't know if they really made any money in that regard. Contracts more or less changed hands. They're 37% out of the money, so $37 call. Somebody could be selling those as well. Let's look at these 23s for June. Again, like I said, some potential repositioning here. Did see some volume yesterday, about 400,000 in premium, and a good portion of that carried over. See 693 volume with about 450 increase in open interest, but there was some selling the last few days. So yeah, I mean these are in the money calls for June. So about 15% in the money. Let's look over the last few days here. So you do have somebody that was sold some, could have been bought some back. Again, these things will trade hands often, and there is multi-leg, so a lot of this could be connected to other trades as well. So that's always important to know. Not necessarily just a single leg trade in that regard. So let's look yesterday, because we do see the last 2 days of multi-leg activity. So let's see what else they were doing on the other side of their trade. We'll take a look at yesterday. Well, usually what we can do, find like our largest candle here, and we can start drilling into this. And we can see if we can find, and there we go. So we can see a floor trade here. We can see the premium and the size. Maybe connected to a multi-leg here. So let's take a look at here and try and figure out what they might have done in connection with these. Okay, so running just a long multi-call. Buying 23s and buying 30s simultaneously. And that's based on the time. Right here, fill. Let's see the size. They kept the size the same in that particular order. So yeah, it's just a long multi-call. 23 in the money and then 30 slightly out of the money. So that particular strategy this trader and or trader is running. So that's when you see the multi-leg. It's always good to kind of look into those. So let's expand on this flow a little bit here and take a look at some of the highest volume contracts. I think most of them were short dated they were for this week. 30s for this week. I think they were leaving those towards the end of the day as well. Yeah, quite a bit of selling on those throughout the day. Sure, there's buyers there, but also sellers that felt GameStop wouldn't close above $30 today, so they were selling calls. Let's see, the same with the 28s. Somebody did jump in here toward the end of the day and dropped, let's see, about 2,500 contracts, around $12 each. They closed at 13, so they moved a little bit, about 250,000 total premium. 12,000 volume, about 2,500 pure new open interest. Could just be the new open interest, could be this particular trader right here that bought these 28s, maybe looking for a little boost, and at the open, maybe a little burst in volatility on a short dated. So about a $30,000 short dated trade, it looks like. That's awesome. Good for you. Be careful. The risk I'm sure they already accepted from the beginning, but yeah, more than likely, I'm not saying that is. It's just the other volume than this candle increase in OI could be, these could have been bought to open. Let's look at the actual candle here. Let's see some of the fill on the size here. 100. Let's see, 28. Some of this came through multi-leg. Let's see. Could just be time of it though. See, buy the 28s, sell the 29s. Yeah, I guess it could have happened just because of the time that was occurring there. Call ratio spread. Size 1. I mean, it's just 1 there in that regard. But yeah, possible multi-leg. But definitely, like I said, just some activity within the stock or within that particular strike. And then the 26 puts, it looked like some more selling or winding down because there was some volume yesterday and open interest decreased. So we've seen some volume the last few days and a change to open interest. But yesterday, about 90,000 in volume on those puts, and then the OI decrease. So more than likely left the position. If we look over the last few days, maybe some buying, selling puts, buying them back. A lot of selling here. Now they've moved down. Some buy them back to close ahead of expiry just to go ahead and capture their gains. Some people do that. And then again, like the $29 calls again, was activity selling as well. Now the open interest did increase just a little bit, but that big block there, someone sold. I don't know. It's always hard to say without being the specific trader. You just look at the data. So somebody said, "Hey, I don't think GameStop will close at 29 or higher." So maybe they sold, a bunch of them right into the close. Could have sold something that they already had that was like, "I don't think it'll go any higher. I should probably sell these before they expire." Today, you never know in that regard. So the volatility was running 101%, so pretty high in that regard. But, if somebody didn't think GameStop would close above $29 today, they might have sold those into the close yesterday in hopes to catch the premium. I always try to give you the idea of what somebody might be thinking. You never know unless you're that person. But again, 27 saw activity yesterday, but a little bit more selling than buying. Short dated, so yes, there was volume, but not a lot of change to open interest. So you see this week in and week out with GameStop, a little bit of momentum in the beginning of the week, some buying on short dated out of the money calls. And as you get closer to expiry, it starts to change a little bit. So here's your top volume for yesterday. I'll let you take a look at that. Sorted by volume, like I said, mostly all short dated. Nothing that really stuck out to me in that regard. We'll look at actually the bulk of the cash in option positioning on Thursday, and we'll just look how that actually broke down. Because like I said before, I try to look for things $500,000 or larger in premium. But again, yesterday was not a very large premium day, so it was 15 mil, pretty light in comparison to normal days. But had those 37s we talked about for January getting wound down. 29s for July were sold. Some of these 30s, I believe, for January. Let's see. OI did increase a little bit, but there was some selling there yesterday, so it could have just changed hands. Somebody might have, sold some of the $30 calls for January. So we look where they've been like the last week. Let's see, down around 6, then bopped up to 7. So not a bad move in that regard. So you never know with the GameStop option trader what their intention are there. The stock's traded. So top premium, like I said, not a lot in that regard. But I'll let you pause or take a screenshot. See, like I said, I didn't see anything that was like, hey, you need to see this, other than things being wound down, which I noted the last couple of days. Seeing the flow, and we saw where traders, jumped in on certain price levels, like when it dropped below 26, you saw some call flow came in. When you saw it drop below 27, some call flow came in as well. These $27 puts, I know those saw some activity yesterday because I saw an alert on unusual whales because the volume had exceeded open interest at the time. And those were around $27 and ran up to about 40. So, I mean, there was a move on those puts. A little bit of gain to open interest, but not much. So, again, there's some people that were selling them and then had to rush to buy them back, or vice versa. Some intraday trading, you see it. And then these $30 puts for January. Again, 262 volume, but OI decreased 243. So see, this was 250. Let's see, let's look at these here. Let's zoom it out. See if we can see if maybe somebody had sold some. Yeah, here possibly. This could be that right there, where someone sold these, bought them back, change of idea. You never really know because the open interest did decrease. So, yes, there was some premium there, but contract traded hand OI decrease. Like I said, it was a pretty a lighter day in that regard. Even the changes to open interest this morning, not a lot of changes, and I'll pull them up here for you. That way you have that data as well. But like the biggest change was those 26 puts leaving, the decrease in OI, and the 30 calls for this week. So there's your like largest decreases in open interest. I will pull up the increases here. Again, like I said, not a lot of big changes. 28s for this week, 30s for next week, 40s for the end of May, saw a little bit, and then 26 puts for May 2nd. Saw a little bit of increase in OI. Let's look at those for the May 2nd. Let's see, someone did sweep and sell some there. An OI increase. So trader may feel that GameStop will close above 26 on May 2nd. So they felt they would sell the $26 put for $41 a contract. So yeah, it just depends what your strategy is there, but that's a scenario that could have happened in that regard. But yeah, like I said, not a lot of big changes there. As for today, obviously it's Friday, it's an expiry. Just watch your moving averages. Watch where the stock's been before. Watch the volume. Watch the option flow. I would assume we'll be seeing, well, not assume, but we'll have some type of earnings announcement. Not for GameStop. I mean, just coming up later down the road. Just something that will revolve around like the May and June expiry, because we had talked about when we looked at the gamma that had kind of built into May and June, playing up on the earnings idea, or, on the Bitcoin. Did they buy any Bitcoin? I know some people were interested in that as well. And we're also at that time of year, too, where yesterday GameStop put out their proxy, their annual statement. It's on the SEC website here. Let's pull that up here. I wanted to pull up that gamma as well real quick. And like I said, when the stock had started moving up, 26, 27, there were a lot of open interests. The calls move up, price moves up, more of those calls become in the money, and then it gets a little more expensive. Market makers have to continually hedge against the positions. So gamma in this regard, being positive, it's long gamma. So as the stock moves closer to that, more of the calls go in the money. So therefore, it's a little bit of upside pressure. And like on the opposite, the price moves away from where all the open interest is. Market makers may sell some of those shares to, just remove, some of that gamma and exposure, which therefore creates the downside pressure. So it kind of works both ways in that regard. But those that unfamiliar with spot gamma, you can pause right here and grab this little screenshot and then save it. That way you've always got that data in that regard. Because we look at it often here. It's just something to look at, something to consider. And like I said, that gamma, net gamma highest at 30, the 27 and 28, like I said, it's built, up there. Does that mean the stock goes there? Not necessarily. But if it does, it could get a little more accelerated with that buying pressure. And that just comes from that just kind of pressure with the market makers and the exposure to those call options then essentially becoming in the money or at the money or, getting closer to the money. So if we look here, like call gamma has been strong there at the 25. Yeah, there's some put gammas there as well. Net gamma, higher at these levels to the long side. And then by expiry, mostly today. But like I said, it's built into May, starting there a little bit at the beginning of May. But that May and June expiry, seeing some activity, which you'll probably see more of that continue as we get closer as well. It tends to build out week by week and then, move into the next month and the next monthly. So, yeah, make sure you go through the proxy there for GameStop. You can check it out. You can read about like the hedging policy, their investment policy, their pledging policy in regards to their shares. Sometimes there can be misinformation in that regard. So sometimes it's best just to go, to GameStop directly. To the SEC website. You can go to GameStop, Investor Relations, and then just read through the proxy. That way you've got all the information. And let's see, because I didn't post it yesterday. It was actually my son's 24th birthday yesterday. But here, I can probably just search it here on X. Yeah, proxy, annual letter. There's Larry. He's always got it for you. So, proxy statement, the annual meeting. And then, yeah, let's see here. There we go. Like I said, you can spend some time to go through that. These are things they'll be talking about at their shareholder meeting, and what they're looking for in that regard. I've read through it's pretty plain Jane in that regard. I know there was some people that will ask about the. Let's find it here. Like the investment policy and how much stock do they require those that work in the at GameStop to own. That's all broken down in here. We shared it from last year's proxy, but now we have the newest updated version. So, which includes things like they added, the idea of a Bitcoin vehicle to their investment policy. So that these are things that weren't on last year's proxy, obviously, because it didn't happen yet. Let me scroll. And I know a lot of people don't read all this. I do. It's important, So highlights are, here we go. Yeah, the equity ownership policy. You've seen me probably post about this before. Basically, new executive officers or non-employee directors given a period of 5 years to basically get in compliance with these requirements. So CEO requires ownership of 5 times base salary. Named executive officer requires 3 times base salary, and then non-employee director $275,000 worth of stock. So, and as of February 1st, each of their executive officers and non-employee directors were in compliance with the policy. So they own enough shares and have. They also have their insider trader policy here. And their pledging policy, which is something they adopted. The pledging policy just says that executive officers and directors may pledge their company securities. Or warrants or whatever else they may have as collateral for a loan or an investment, provided that the maximum aggregate loan or investment amount collateralized by the securities doesn't exceed 50% of their pledged securities. So of the 50% of what they pledge, the loan can't exceed half of that, and they are allowed to pledge some of that. So you saw that with the last Ryan Cohen filing, that some of his shares are pledged. It's not like he has anything on loan. He has them pledged at Charles Schwab for the idea of a margin, credit loan in that regard. So, and then also they have an anti-hedging policy. So given that the aim of ownership of common stocks to ensure employees, directors, have a direct personal financial stake in our performance, hedging transactions on the part of employees and directors could be contrary. Therefore, we have adopted anti hedging policy, which states that the implementation by an employer director of hedging strategies or transactions using short sales, puts, calls, or other types of financial instruments, including, I know, including but not limited to prepaid variable forward contracts, swaps, collars, exchange fund based upon the value, blah, 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 blah. So basically, they're not allowed to hedge their own position. So, it's important for GameStop of that having the policy to own equity, make sure that it believes that, basically right here, to that end, we have an equity ownership policy, and each executive non maintain ownership of a common stock with at least the value. But they believe having the financial stake helps them align with the interests of the stockholders and the company. So definitely read through the proxy there, as you should, especially if you're a shareholder. You never know what you might find information wise. It's just good, it kind of gives you the inside look at a company, what they're talking about, pay in that regard, people. I think it's important to read. I enjoy reading them. I enjoy looking at, like for example, if you go down here, like look at security ownership here. So Vanguard's got 8.3% of GameStop stock. BlackRock's got 7.4%. And Mr. Cohen's got 8.4%. He's the largest holder. He's even larger than Vanguard, which is pretty awesome. So, and then all directors combined, 38 million. So yeah, that's 28, 40, 47, and 38. So another 40, 87, 85. So 85 mil locked up there between insiders of Vanguard and BlackRock. That doesn't include what's out there, locked up with DRS, etc., etc. But yeah, check it out. Make sure you go through the proxy there. But yeah, that's what I got for you this morning. It's Friday, long-winded. Bookmark it. If you can't watch it now, as always, do appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend. And did anybody have luck on the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order? Let me know down in the reply if you had luck or not. I know a lot of people did, and a lot of people did not. I saw the lines at GameStop were packed, though. Nintendo stock actually rallied yesterday as well. So on the idea of the Switch 2 pre-order. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out today. Y'all have a fabulous day and a great weekend. And we'll see you around the internet real soon.